If you find yourself walking through hell, don't stop. Okay. Now, we'll start with a brief silence. Home. Home. Okay. Oh, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Satsang. So happy to see everybody. Kalyani, you were able to make it from the Bahamas. What a delight. As I close my eyes to do the meditation, I have this game that I play on my phone. It's just a silly game. And right as I closed my eyes and settled back into a different awareness, I saw the little figures of the game. And I'm sure all of us have had this experience of these mental impressions. If you've ever done tratak or eye gazing with an image, a yantra or a mandala or flame, or you stare at a light and you close your eyes and the light is still there. We all have this experience, but it speaks to how impressionable we are. That all of the things that we consume through the senses linger in us. And these are, I think we could say, samskaras. That these impressions, even from past lives, are these impressions and even superimpositions on what we call reality. And these past impressions, almost like you could say 7 lenses or filters. And what we're peering through these filters or veils informs what it is that we think we see. And these impressions come from past, many of them past lives. Our mental and emotional tendencies that inform really the personality that we're born with, inform the body that we're born with. And so already, even in birth in this world, we don't come completely fresh. The yogis, the sages say that it even informs the family we're born into, the bodies we're born into, the personalities, the social and economic structures we're born into. All of these things in kind of, the sages say, a meticulous perfection of, in order to experience the fruits of our past thoughts, word, and deed, karma. So this model of life as a punishment it's just wrong, you know? Or a God as a judging or punishing God. It's a total misunderstanding. In this way, perhaps we could say that this God is more of a precise accountant, making sure that everything is running according to karma. But even this God, perhaps I could say, to personify it a bit, wants all of us, all of you, to be free of those past impressions that bring us suffering. So what to do about, these past impressions? To know it is important. What I see is colored by my past. And if I know that, then, well, I can be much more discerning about how I'm perceiving and how I'm engaging or interacting. If I don't know this, then I'm sort of operating blindly in a maze that I don't understand. And also, if I know this, now I can begin making choices. My decisions would reflect a knowledge of what am I, what is this world, and what is my relationship to it to help me navigate a little bit more clearly. There are, the yogis say, 3 types of karma. Karma is infinitely complex. But there's sanchita karma, which is the full storehouse of all karmas of all lifetimes. There's prarabdha karma, which is the subset of sanchita that is to be experienced in a particular lifetime, your life, prarabdha. And then there's agami, which are as we are in this world and operate in this world, thinking, speaking, and acting, we are having new karmas. So this fish game that I play on my phone creates agamis, new samskaras in my mind. All of the interactions I'm having with you now, creating mental impressions that will carry forward. I don't know where it is. I think it's in Yoga Sutras. The translation is, future misery should be avoided. But you see, this is the thing, that we are what we have eaten. We become what we're eating. And in a recognition of this is how it is in my mind and in my heart, now I can take it upon myself to be more discerning about what it is I engage with. So the kind of relationships I have, the kind of people I associate with, the kind of music I listen to, the type of movies I watch. You know, there was a time in my life where I would have scoffed at all of this as absurd. But we know it for ourselves. A child watches a horror film and has nightmares. You know? It isn't so hard to believe. But you see, these impressions are the sort of the cocktail of our personality. And so disengaging from our habits is not easy. There has a tremendous momentum. That past habit, past desire, as habit, very difficult to detach from. It has such a momentum, like like a big cargo ship. You know, for it to change course or for it to come to a stop even, it takes so many miles. So this is what came to mind this morning, as what came to mind came to mind. And with this and all things, hopefully we can find the good news in this. And mostly the good news in coming to understand how it actually works, even though it's disturbing, is that it puts us in a place of sovereignty, of being able to make choices, understanding what's really going on. If we are blind to it, it makes it very difficult for us to navigate. If we're always forgetting, it makes it very difficult for us to maintain a consistent course. And so much of the spiritual evolution comes from repetition over and over and over because of this forgetting. How many times have we had the same conversation? But it's okay. It's important. And don't stop until it really dins in us what it is. What it is that you are, what it is that this is, and your relationship to it. You see, the whole world is running around thinking they know, but don't actually. This is the cause of the suffering. Even with pure and beautiful intentions to do good, not understanding. It's trouble. So, who has something this morning?
I have a question.
Please.
I'm going to refer to some notes I took about this. So, the bulk of my practice has been essentially neti, and it is, of course, very powerful in and of itself, seeing what I'm not. But naturally, as I use this practice, I find in my mind a tendency to draw conclusions of what I am, because that's how my mind works. And with using neti and using that old paradigm, what I am seems to be, or at least my mind draws conclusions of what I am to be, basically. It's like if I am not the thinker and I am not the doer, then what I am must be completely empty, completely bland, characteristicless, emotionless, like clinical dispassion, and even in the context of action, beliefs will arise like, well, there's nothing to do, or if I continue on this path, then I'll just live my life sitting on a couch doing nothing. And less and less these conclusions are believed, and more just seem to be the limitations of the dying paradigm. But outside of that dying paradigm, where I find imagination can't go, I've had experiences beyond that, outside of those confines, that always seem to surprise me. It's experience that I am not bland. I am not nothing. There isn't nothing to do. And in fact, what I am is, in these experiences, found to be incredibly rich with distinct characteristics. For example, like courage outside of the confines of the courage/fear spectrum, or confidence not imprisoned by the oscillating spectrum of confident or hesitant, outside of the dualities, but there are just like actual distinct characteristics, and the same is true of things like trust or worth, self-value, for example. There are distinct characteristics, and I'm always surprised by it up to this point when I have these experiences outside of that old paradigm. And my question is, maybe this is just my anecdotal experience, but I don't find in spirituality that what I am, or these characteristics of my true nature, I don't find them discussed a lot. I find almost everything practice is centered around neti, or what I'm not. And so this gives me a little pause when I'm trying to feel into what I am and the actual distinct rich characteristics. And so my question is then, is that because it's not wise? Is this a cul-de-sac? Is this a bit of a trap? Is it not wise to sort of feel into these things? Yeah, that's my question, and I can maybe elaborate further if it's not very clear what I'm speaking
No,
about.
it's very good, very clear, and very subtle. It's at the heart of everything. So Nisargadatta Maharaj says, wisdom is knowing I'm nothing. Love is knowing I'm everything. And between the two, my life moves. There is truth, and there is love. And where they merge, this is. Before the intersection of the genuine, direct experience of truth and love being one and the same, not different, there is the discerning, an essential discerning power of self-honesty. In neti, it's very common extremely common to make the mistake of rejecting. Rejection has the hue, the color of aversion. And it's not that. In this Kali Yuga, the sages say that our intellect is so feeble. Even the brightest among humans, such a feeble intellect. You see? And so even very sharp-minded Advaitins get lost in the same way, which is to draw any conclusion, we don't notice that in a recognition of subject and object, that we think we're the one who detached. You see? The ego, the identity, is always sneaking up. We don't see it. It sneaks up behind the revelation and claims it and says, I know this. And then we'll very quickly recalculate its strategy for identification. And we don't see it. You've heard this, it's not new. The I cannot see itself, can't say anything of itself, can draw no conclusion. It has no characteristic that could be spoken or even thought. And the me that is perceiving this can think this is cold, aloof. Disassociative in a clinical sense of dissociation. This is part of the experience of the one engaging in neti, is to reject. It's a mistake. Nothing is excluded, ever. How could it be? Even in the depth of Advaita philosophy, why would you bother rejecting what is false? To reject it would be to validate it. This is even in the strict sense of Advaita. I think a softer approach, even in neti, is much more advisable. There's nothing to reject. There's simply to become aware. Perhaps we could say that to become aware of one's own self is 90% of the work. And what to be done after that? Well, we have to be honest. To honor what is seen. To honor who it is we think we are. Even if there's a sense of, well, I also can't be that. Part of suffering is that we've already rejected ourselves, disassociated from our own self. Even in sort of modern psychology, doing work with the inner child, each one will come to see that we're the ones that have been punishing our own inner child all along as a response to trauma in different degrees in this lifetime alone. There is no violence in neti. There's no violence against the false ego. The one who comes to know the freeness of being will honor the falseness, even in some reverence. You'll come to love your identity and your past just like a father would a child. You'll remember a previous experience where you got it completely wrong, and you'll think, oh, how sweet that man was. Look at how beautiful he is, trying and learning. Not as a put-on, not as a poetry, but as like, wow. And you'll begin to see other people like this as well, that in all of the misunderstandings. There's no violence in neti. And there's nothing to reject, and in the end, nothing is excluded. Maya is not excluded. It's such a common mistake. This must be why the Vaishnavas and the Krishna's consciousness is so against what they call Mayavadis, because this is such a common mistake. It doesn't make neti wrong. It doesn't make Advaita wrong. It makes the approach wrong. But this is because this is just how it is for us, the habit of identifying, of somebody who needs to be right to draw a conclusion, to rework a strategy of life called personality. And you're right, Andrew, you're so right. That beyond the emptiness, there is an intimacy that is so much more enthusiastic and effulgent than the intimacy that you thought you had when you were a character in the drama. So if you are blessed enough to arrive at the emptiness and to see how it is pregnant with potential, go further. Go further still. The recognitions along the way, it's not that they're wrong, they're just not right, not yet. Camus and Sartre, Melville, they weren't wrong when they wrote their epic books, but they didn't go far enough. They pulled up too short, and they wrote too soon. no problem. So notice this, even to be, if you're pure in neti, then there is no me to draw any conclusion about what it's seeing. At first, there's a lingering sense of me judging, characterizing, that will claim the emptiness and not know what's happening. But this is like the sages say, this is the feeble intellect of the Kali Yuga. We all suffer from this. And on the scale of IQ and intellect in this world, the smartest ones in this age are all of us. What a relief. Huh? Not as smart as you thought you were. What a relief. The easefulness of your practice. Always soften and allow. And simultaneously be persistent and diligent, but be soft in that persistence. Always be honest. Self-sincerity is so critical. Who can you be other than who you think you are? And know that there's no way to get it right. Also, this means there's no way to get it wrong. That we're just exploring. Even when we're engaging in the outer, the truth of this is all we're really doing is exploring the inner, just in its reflection. So it's a bit more confusing this way, because it's like, has anybody ever tried to a trailer attached to your car and go in reverse? This is what it is to be in the world. I don't remember who it is. One Swami said, this world has its pants on backwards. It's all inverted. Inverted, inside out, upside down. It's because it's a reflection. But in the reflection, you can find yourself and realize this is all you've been navigating all along. What could you possibly reject? Yeah. Could you reject yourself? Tell me, how is this possible? But we try over and over, don't we? There's this funny thing. It's like the finger puzzle. And fully, meaning it's counterintuitive. And it has to be gentle. But fully accepting ourselves as we are, honestly, in sincerity, with deep love and compassion, self-love, self-compassion. Now it's so much easier to be free of the foibles and the habits that bring us continued suffering. We cannot commit a violence against ourselves. We do over and over again. So in fact we can, but shouldn't. It doesn't work. It will never bear fruit. And because through these lenses, these samskaras, these past mental impressions, we see from where we're looking, our own selves, it doesn't make any sense to commit any violence against anyone because it is I. Truly, not as some poetry. You know? Each one, when we dream, lying in bed, preferably, sleep, the body sleeps, mind goes into dream. Where do all the characters come from in the dream? They come from you, from your mind, yes? You're the main character and you're all the other characters. All of these are creations in your own mind. You're the Andrew and the demon and the whole thing. Where's the peril? Where should you focus your violence, your aggression? What should you reject? What if it's like this also? That like in a dream, I sleep, I'm the main character, I'm all of the peripheral characters, antagonist, protagonist, supporting characters. The ground I walk on also comes from the same dreaming mind. It all comes from the same mind. What if it's actually like this? And if it is, or if you think that it might be, what would you actually do today? If you thought that this waking state was actually a dream in the mind of God, or just to play with it, not even believing it, just a game of pretend like a child. How would I play this role of Johnny today? If I am a character in the dream of God, how would I enjoy this? Some would say that the I that each one truly is that same consciousness. I is I. But Andrew, here's the thing. This I doesn't reject anything. Doesn't exclude anything, and certainly would not exclude its own son. The son excludes the son. You know the story of the prodigal son? Taken his inheritance and gone and spent it in the world. Who judged? God is not that one. It's a misunderstanding. Me judges. And so when this prodigal son makes his return, comes back to his father's house, a feast, a great celebration. But he left, and he came back. The world will reject you. Everything in the world will reject you, and you will reject it. Has been happening all along. God cannot do this. It's not possible. It's actually not possible. As soon as you turn to God, the arms are open. That must be sincere, of course. This is very good news. In my own very small way, I see this very clearly. Everything comes and goes, comes and goes. I'm here. And it's a funny thing. It's true. When people go, they feel rejected. But we don't realize we're the ones that have turned away. This is the free will that we're granted in this world. God has a totally open door policy. He says, I am here. I am now. You can go to the past, you can go to the future, you can go outward, you can go inward. You come and go. It's the very moment any one of us sincerely makes the turn back. Wide open arms. What if all this talk about the last judgment and the apocalypse, the rapture, what if each one of us is the great judge of ourselves and the world? And the last judgment is simply the last time my gavel comes down on you or me. And surrender into what is, what has always been. Have you heard it said, has it made sense to you that on the culmination of forgiveness, you realize that it was already forgiven? I think maybe even somewhere in the Bible, Jesus says this. It's already been forgiven. In this way, there was never any sin. There was never karma. Each one is already completely free. What a show. And in the recognition of this, if this is true, find out for yourself, of course. Believe anything I say at your own peril. But if it's possible that it's true, will you judge yourself for having judged? Do you see it? Do you see the habit, the tendency? If you see this, then the game can't continue so much longer. But most of us don't see it. The habit of self-judgment is so strong that we don't even notice it when we're judging ourselves for judging. We don't even notice. Because the intellect is so feeble, the forgetting. In a nanosecond, we forget. Truly, there's no problem. Do you think, so many people think that if I were to let go this radically, I do and say such horrible things. If I were to forgive others, they would be free to continue to be so awful. Don't we think this? It's a lie. It's just not true. Find out. The one who's free of judgment, there isn't any impulse to act against or to act for one's own self against another. The impulse isn't there, the need isn't there. The fear that inspires attractions and aversions, I used to think that on the culmination of the recognition, the world might dissolve. Well, it can happen in perception, of course. It always seems to reappear. So don't worry for it. Know this. Each one of us is the only judge. You've heard it said, you yourself are the jailer that holds the key that keeps you in your cell. This is that key. If we dare to experiment in this, to prove out our belief in it, can we be soft, gentle with ourselves and with others as we continue to navigate our perceptions? Can we really be loving and compassionate with ourselves and everyone as we engage in neti neti? I myself had this foolishness of neti neti that was so severe and so intense, so arrogant. It just seems to be part of the process. But know, when that remains, further to go. If you want to write a book about nihilism, wait a year. There was some conversation yesterday about what is love's opposite. Is it fear? I don't remember what some of the other. But the love that is love has no opposite. Fear itself is love. And so nothing to fear. Hate itself is love. Is it too ridiculous to say? It has no opposite. This process of detachment, it sometimes, Andrew, can feel so impersonal, so cold and aloof, callous. antisocial, you said. It's only from the lens of the one who's still attached. It's part of the appearance. It feels impersonal. I assure you, it is not. Beyond the sense of personal, engaged in the drama, identified as the actor, with excitement and the whole range of emotions fully invested in them, it feels personal. This personal doesn't compare to the level of intimacy that we have in the world on the other side of what's perceived as callousness or impersonal. The desert of neti is the same as the forest of Vrindavan. You just see somehow differently. It appears different. Some years ago, I was in Georgetown and my daughter was shopping with her friend. They were young, 12 or 13, and it was an exciting first time to have some kind of independence in Georgetown, D.C. And so I sat nearby, of course, at a Starbucks, looking out at the street on M Street. And there was this tall man with a long beard, covered in a hot day, covered in a thick wool blanket, walking right down the middle in the traffic, cars honking, and just walking so slowly. And I was like, what an odd image this is. And for whatever reason, I became curious. I said, I wonder what his experience is like. And so without thinking about it too much, I said, I will look through his eyes. He was walking in a field of flowers. Instantly, my inclination was to race out and to bow at his feet. But you see, I was held back. I'm glad. Each of us is already walking there. He maybe didn't know. Clearly I didn't know. Is this some insanity? Maybe this is more fundamental to the truth, that we're all actually in heaven. And only just don't see it as some quirk of consciousness where past impressions superimpose something different on. But if you find yourself in the desert of neti, don't stop. There's this great saying I heard so many years ago. If you find yourself walking through hell, don't stop. Didn't Ram Dass or Timothy Leary or somebody like this had a bus, and you know how on the front of the bus it says what town it's going to or what direction it's going to, and they just put "go further." Did you hear this? Or further, maybe it was further, something like this. further. You think you've arrived, you haven't. Mm-hmm. If the GPS says, you have arrived, the subtlety of your inquiry is really good. There's a great desire to know, and a persistent looking that will bear fruit for you, for sure. Remember this. There's nothing to reject in the world. There's no activity to reject. There's no you to reject. It's unwise. But pay close attention to what you are and what you're not. You'll know when you're ready to renounce. You won't care about food or relationship. You won't care about your spiritual evolution. And then in that moment, like Siddhartha Gautama, you'll sit under a tree or retire to a cave, but as a matter of preference, not as an assault on what is false. Now this, you would say. Maybe even with some sense of curiosity. But not as an assault, not as a rejection. There are so many, I hear them. Claiming this dry Advaita proudly. I did it. What a bore. Good Lord. I think this must be why here, and I think this might be why Srila Prabhupada was so against this, what they call Mayavadi. I don't know. I'll have to talk to impersonalism. I think there's a great peril in it. There's a great peril in it. To families, to societies, to our own self. But it doesn't make neti wrong. Okay. Truly, if there is some marker called, it's not even right, but anyway, I'll say it anyway. If there's some landmark of the destination, it is love without any opposite. That love is truth. The same, not different. When jnana and bhakti are the same, you climb a mountain as a jnani, you arrive as a bhakti. You climb a mountain as a bhakti, you arrive as a jnani. They're not different. But they sure were different paths, weren't they? But you see, for me, I think you cannot endeavor as a jnani without engaging in loving service. You cannot traverse the mind without a loving heart, and you cannot traverse a suffering heart without a clear mind like this. In one hand, we have truth. In the other hand, we have love. When they come together, see then what the world is and what you are that is in it. Om. Om. Just one little moment to marinate. Om. Thank you, thank you.